Of course, General Katak of the Norgi didn't touch the diplomat, but the interstellar soldier shouldn't have thought. Humans had diplomats in the traditional sense. He supposed they had dogs in suits things that barked in riddles and snapped. When provoked. To be fair, the last Terran envoy had screamed at the Trelvok Prime Minister. And despite that, the ambassador had won. Now. Katak stood 9 feet tall, steam rising from his secondary gill's tusks, twitching as fury coiled through Zarn Prime's crystal hall. Every motion of his muscled arms, every creak of his armor, begged for a comment. No. One made one, through lens-like eyes. The balcony stretched high over 412 delegates from 117 systems. The crystal hall shimmered, outfitted with anti-humidifiers and pheromone scrubbers. Some species grew nauseous from the ambient smells. Others grew ... fertile. It was a room designed to maintain order. Then, Ambassador Miles Harlan arrived, humming a folk tune from the Pana. He didn't shift, teleport, or shimmer in with a quantum device. He walked in, wearing a wrinkled black suit with elbow patches and carrying nothing but a leather-bound notebook. No weapons, no entourage. No translator. Squinting into the light, he muttered, "Drone, no weapons, not even rank insignia. Apologies, I got lost in your biomorphic passageways." From the balconies, a delegate whispered, "Is this the human envoy, Katak?" Oblivion serpentine and smug hissed in laughter. Harlan glanced at him, then at his seat, then sniffed a steaming beverage offered by a trembling Tsar assistant. "This smells like wet." "Apologies," the assistant said. "It is ceremonial." "Broth?" Harlan bowed politely, took a sip, winced, and then reached into his coat. From it, he produced a thermos. He poured a splash of pine needle tea into the bowl, just enough to give it the scent of wine. A gasp erupted from Sector D. "The human is contaminating the sacred liquid," Harlan replied evenly, "just diluting the regret." Katak took a step forward. Roars from nearby delegates grew louder, some shocked, others intrigued. "This is not how diplomacy works." One snapped. "Arlan diplomacy is usually more polite." "Less death threats," Harlan quipped. "I haven't even threatened anyone yet." He closed his notebook and tilted his head. "General, your tendrils just twitched in the rhythm of your species' dual posture." "That true?" The room fell silent. "You've got 3 eyes." "You know what I do next?" Harlan said. "You'll try to claim my refusal of the ceremonial broth as an insult. Invoke some ancient rite, then ... try to kill me." He shrugged. "I respect the pageantry, I really do. But I only came to ask one question." He stepped forward, polished shoes clicking across the opaline floor. "General ... Is your ego worth a planetary war?" Katak smiled, but it wasn't kind. With theatrical flair, he pulled a crimson glyph scroll from his belt pouch. "Since the insult was made public," he declared, "I demand a sacred duel of honor." A Zarn officiator floated down, humming sweetly. "You may also submit." A public groveling, it offered. "Sorry," Harlan said. "Just one question. What happens if I refuse?" The air tensed. "If you refuse," the officiator said, "all treaties are void, your embassies close, your trade collapses." "And if I agree?" Harlan asked. "You die." He considered this, then poured himself another cup of tea. Above, a drone recorded everything, 117 translations. Already streaming across the cosmos. Katak removed his armor. His bone mail gleamed under the crystal lights. The dual platform rose. Harlan stepped up, calmly handed the officiator his thermos, and whispered something no one heard. Katak lunged, first fangs out, sword gleaming. It was fast, brutal. The ceremonial blade struck Harlan in the ribs. He crumpled to the floor. Cameras zoomed in. Victory chants began. The officiator raised a hand. But then Harlan stood back up. He winced, pulled out his notebook again. "For the record," he said, "I accepted the duel." "You struck before the officiator declared it." He flipped a page. Subclause 58. The officiator froze. "You violated interspecies protocol," Harlan continued. "Unprovoked assault on a declared diplomat." A red light blinked on the side of his notebook. Katak's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" He growled. Harlan stared him down. "That ... Is a live transmission to Earth's emergency intergalactic command. He paused. We don't bluff, General. We document. Katak lunged again, but before he reached Harlan the room blinked. Gravity. Shivered. Lights flickered. And outside, the horizon of Zon Prime began to pulse. Red. Delegates screamed. Shields activated. The officiator's chant died. Mid-word. Because a new sound filled the air. Not the roar of engines. Not the scream of weapons. It was silence, a human silence. Then came the message. You violated diplomatic class protection. You wanted war. Now you'll get our version. Moved to the tiny alcove, which had a mirrored wall at the far end of the room. It wasn't a mirror. Rather, it mirrored him as the assignment required, not how he seemed. Specifically silent and unwavering, he gazed at himself without adoration. Beneath the smooth black tunic and beneath the cold silence was recognition. The man who, at the age of 17, saw a planetary government fall apart around his outpost while brandishing a gun had been deemed unnecessary and subsequently transformed into a human record-keeping tool because he remained calm. He didn't weep or inquire as to why. His emotional file appeared to be detached, stable in practice. The voice interrupted again, but this time it was quieter. The automated system cleared the drop-point locked landing corridor. After 6 minutes of overriding the knock, Tsar Diplomatic Clearance said, "Softly clear a new vector." When he turned, the tactical blindside civil quadrant coordinates were locked. He returned to the case, took it up, and used a magnetic strip to secure it to his forearm. Once it clicked with a clean sound, he proceeded to the hatch for another scan and pause. He could feel his heart rate dropping. He wasn't scared, but he was becoming more acute. This was the result of a mission that included no compromise or uncertainty. Over the past century, people had neglected a ghost story, and now the floor shattered open, revealing a tiny ramp that plunged into the shadows below. Luminous spires, man-made seas, and public memory gardens glistened with dreams. All so lovely and complete. Without a sonic boom, the ship slowed down, making it susceptible like a shadow removing skin. When Knox stepped outside, he was already being observed by surveillance units. The trail had just gone cold. Defense beacons blinked in unison. Unsure if they were meant to welcome or alert him, he continued walking past a giant-shaped floating bureaucratic kiosk, past a child-shaped fountain with tendrils covered in scrolling legislative bulletins, resembling a jellyfish. Memory physically changed to fit the viewer's memories, yet none of it slowed him down. His route headed straight to the ruling core, a tall helix of transparent stela, combination of an archive and a place where all diplomatic data and law enforcement procedures came together. 3 guards waited half an hour when deity part. Weapon Knox arrived at the base security gate. You are not registered, the machine half something else said, sounds clicking in time. He did not hold up the case at this level. Instead, they paused and scanned him. They moved aside. The building let him in with a sigh, and there was silence once more. But this stillness was distinct. It was the silence of observing and experiencing silence. The central room rose like a cathedral composed of courts and logic. Each wall displayed criminal DNA overlays, contracts, enforcement analytics, and interspecies precedent logs. The ceiling radiated gentle light filtered by artificial awareness. There was a single podium, no guards, no fanfare. Only the anticipation of Knox's arrival. He slid the document into the receiver after unlatching the case. The system scanned and assessed it, then halted after cross-referencing, which never occurred. Clause 13.7, subsection 6, he spoke out. Loud. Causing retaliatory escalation on the legal pretext of unprovoked ambassadorial assault under a banner of peace. Another silence. Then a mechanical voice answered with a low chime. It was not from Earth. It spoke a neutral dialect only 9 species shared, 1 AI for law enforcement confirmed. The walls moved. Parts of the planet's political map lit up sector by sector while blinking. General Katak's visage showed live, mouth open, mid-shout, frozen. The system recalibrated a dozen planetary shields. After inactive energy pathways realigned, the core released a final verification. Compliance enforcement started regarding the Zarn Prime penalty. In the midst of everything, Knox stood for a moment before closing the case, then left. No explosions. No warnings. Just bureaucracy carrying out its duties in the background. The lights on the world started to go out. The first thing to go out was the light. The sun continued to shine obstinately, stationary in its orbit, oblivious to the systems below. But artificial light flickered and dyed street lamps, tower glows, ceremonial domes. The residents of Zarn Prime noticed someone had flipped the master switch for the entire world. At first, they were a species preoccupied with appearances. Light represented prestige. Illumination was pride after the levitating gardens dimmed and the dome lanterns descended. The western spire hubs faded. Upper Senate officials assumed a blackout. Then the sky changed color from crystalline blue to dull gray, to a tone that had no name in any language. Only warning, the sky became an interface with a single message. Panic started. Senators slipped on marble steps, ripped off sashes, shoved aides, screamed for evac codes. But the enforcement AI continued. It was not vindictive, not cruel. It was just ... complete. Paragraph 13.7. Subsection 6. Not only was action permitted, it was required. Sector by sector. Transport pods fell. Systems shut down, but not violently. Power cables hissed. Orbiting stations popped like bubbles. Diplomatic rings spiraled down. And above it all, Mercy's shadow, the dropcraft remained, still, watching. Knox sat quietly, watching the case unfold inside it. One whisper AI sealed and idle like a completed letter. A black-line communication patch in his ear reported. Attempts to reinstate planetary law. Resistance, 94%. Final